All right.
All righty. Oh, it's week 18. Limping to the finish line here. So week 17 recap. I went 1-4. Just another bad week. So we're in the super contest, we're at 32, 50, and 3 overall, 33.5 points. In the circa, we're at 31, 50, and 4, 33 points overall. I mean, I'd have to go back and look, but I feel like over the last 5-6 weeks, it's just been like 1-4, 1-4, 2-3, 0-5, 1-4. Just not great. Just to recap the picks from last week, Texans against the Jags, just a bad pick. Texans got smoked. I mean, they were out of it at the half. Bears, it's reminds me of the old Denny Green clip. Justin Fields is who we thought he is. We kind of talked about it as we were making the pick. I think, we thought the Bears were going to play the Lions close. They did the first time around, but it's the it's the observation on Justin Fields. He lights it up from a fantasy perspective, but he's nowhere near the spread or a win. Doesn't cover, doesn't win. That's exactly what happened last week. Patriots, we had a brutal backdoor. And actually got screwed even harder because of the Nick Foles missed extra point. I think the Westgate, the line was 3. So if he had made that extra point, we still would have covered. Circa, we still would have lost the game because they had the hook on that one.
Yeah.
But Dolphins scored late TD after we got outside the number, and just kind of the way the season's gone. Bet against the Raiders with Derek Carr benched. They played the game of the year. They didn't win, but dropped 33 points on the number 1 defense in the league.
Yeah, Stidham had like 350 yards.
Yeah. Just doesn't matter what we do with the Raiders. It's just a loss. Packers, great read. Couldn't have read that game better. Won easy. Thank God. Otherwise, we would have gone 0-5. So that's the recap of the week. The other thing that's like probably just even more laughable about it is, just going back and looking at all the games that we were considering. We also had other games we were looking at that we liked. We liked the Browns getting 2 against the Commanders on the road. They covered. We liked the Steelers getting 2.5 against the Ravens. They covered. We liked the Giants laying 6 at home against the Colts. They covered. We liked the Seahawks getting 1.5 at home against the Jets. They covered. 4 games that we had as alternative picks. They all won.
Yeah.
We didn't take them. So we had 9 games that we liked. We went 5-4 on the week. We went 1-4 with our picks.
Yeah.
It's just, but again, it feels like that's kind of been a common theme for us, this year is like, we've had some bad luck, and then we've also just left a lot of games that we read right. We've just left them on the table and just kind of made the wrong picks when we get to the end, and we're narrowing it down. So, anyway, that's the recap. Week 17. Anything to add?
No, I mean, it's just at this point we're so far out of it, it's not worth really beating ourselves up. Just more of a, try and take things from each week and apply it towards next year. And I think that we've been able to do that, at least identifying things that we need to be better at. So, I think next year we can tighten some things up. I know we've talked about bringing Bowen in just adding a third voice and then maybe switching up the format as well. And I think that's, I think that's really just like the change that we need. I don't think that it's,
Yeah.
I don't think that our reads have necessarily been bad. It's like we've talked about it every week where it just seems to be more bad luck than anything. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely just tighten some things up. And yeah, I mean, maybe at this point, maybe we could have tightened some things up in the past couple of weeks, but at the same time, I think it's just, next year, clean slate. That's kind of what we're working towards.
Yeah. 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 All right. Well, let's take a look at this week. So coming into this week, some season results. Road teams 8-7 against the spread last week. Underdogs were 8-7. Road teams overall 125, 123, and 7. Underdogs 132, 111, and 7. Best teams against the spread: Cincy 12-3, Giants 12-4, Lions 11-5, and then the Chargers 10-5-1. Worst against the spread: Bucks 4-11-1, Rams 5-10-1. You've got Chicago, Indy, and KC there as well. A few things just from Caesars, if you're interested. Some season win totals on the line. Carolina 6.5 season win total. The Commanders 7.5. Patriots 8.5. Dolphins 8.5. And the Chargers at 10. Currently, it's a push. And then huge public bets this week. 75% of the public are on the Rams and Giants this week. Rams against Seattle, Giants against the Eagles. Yeah. That's the slate. All right. You want to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. First game, got the Jaguars and the Titans. Jaguars at home, laying 6. Obviously, this is for the AFC South, winner take all, and they'll get the 4 seed in the AFC. What do you like here?
I like the Titans a lot here. I think all things considered, they actually hung in there with the Cowboys. I mean, short week, bringing in Dobbs, all those inactive players, specifically Derrick Henry, who was the true motor of their offense. And I mean, it was 10-6 at half. It was 17-13 after 3. I think it ended up being 24-13, 27-13 maybe. I think they just finished outside of the number on the spread. But like the Cowboys, they were playing that game. They played their full. I mean, they didn't have Pollard, but they were throwing the ball a ton, and then the Titans were able to force turnovers. I thought Josh Dobbs looked really good on such a short week, and then also just kind of being picked up by the team. And they were talking about on the broadcast that his parents had to fly to, I think, Detroit or something to pick up his car from the airport and then drive it down and meet him at the game and everything, because that's how quickly things came together. So I just thought they looked pretty good, with all the people out and everything. And I think that the big thing here is that it's a big spot for if we're able to kind of show everybody whose division it is. And I think that the big thing here is that I like getting all these points in that game, because this should be just a hard fought game, should be a close game. And in that sense, like, I think 6 points is just way too many.
And you think, because they've lost 6 straight now?
6 straight, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was leaning Jags here. I mean, I just feel like there's so much momentum going their way. They've covered 4 straight. Tennessee's 0-5-1 against the spread in their last 6. I just feel like they're spiraling. And Jacksonville's got the confidence of winning big a few weeks ago. They've been on a roll. They've done everything that they've needed to do to kind of, get into this position. And it just feels like there's so much momentum going their way. I do have a hard time. I have a hard time feeling confident back in the Titans in this one. And I like
that's when you make the switch, though. When all the momentum is in one team's favor and the other team, like you said, that feels like they're spiraling. It's like, I just think the 6 points, like this should just be a 1-score game. And, if the, I just feel like when you're looking at the range of outcomes, it's like, all right, there's like the Jags 7-point win, or it's going to be less than that. So it's like, you're almost you know, you're almost playing for like that 1 out of 7 chance. If you think the Jags are going to win no matter what, you're playing for like that 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7 chance that it's a 7 point win. And then all the other factors are kind of, you know, inside that touchdown. It's like as you get over a touchdown now, it's starting to look or less and less likely, right? You're like all of a sudden a 10 point win feels tough because this is still a tough Titans defense. And they're definitely just going to try and do what they do best. I mean, all that they did, right? I mean, the big thing, especially about the past couple of weeks, was that they weren't able to hang with teams because they literally could not throw the ball. And sure, they still lost by 14 points against the Cowboys, but that was with like nobody. And you know, like they didn't have Derrick Henry. They sat out a ton of guys on the defense, and they were still forcing these turnovers against this Cowboys team. And you know, they're still able to play them tough. And you could even see that they were doing what the Titans typically do in a lot of spots like this, which was like kind of dragging their opponent down with them because the Cowboys were still fairly high volume with what they were trying to do. I mean, they were throwing to CeeDee Lamb a ton right out of the gate, and that they weren't able to create any separation in terms of the score until the fourth quarter. And that's what I really liked. Like, I just feel like now all of a sudden the Titans, they rested everybody last week, and I think the Jags, I don't know how much the Jags rested people. I know Trevor Lawrence didn't do much statistically. I still think he had a decent amount of passing attempts and everything like that. But yeah, I just felt like now it's like all of a sudden they have like what they need with the run game. They're all rested and they're adding at least something as a passing element there. So I just think I just think 6 points is just way too many in a spot like this. I mean, it's going to be back and forth. The Titans will have the lead at some point in the game, and you know, all of a sudden, you know, I mean, I think that they could win it outright just because of you know what I'm saying, where it's like I just feel like this is a chance for Vrabel to be like, no, this is still my division. And we've seen them do it so many times. I mean, they've always been, you know, a team that deals with injury and everything, and they still grind it out. It's like that's kind of why we liked them so early in the season, right? Where it's like they started off what 0-2, 0-3, and then all of a sudden, you know, we were saying like they're a team that you just blink, and all of a sudden they're in the division lead. So I think that they're still a tough team. I think that Vrabel and the way that they play can keep this close, and at that point, give me the points all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I just you know, I feel like we've we've bet a couple times on the Titans during this win streak, just feeling like, you know, there's no way they can lose another. There's no way they can lose another. And they just kind of they keep losing.
Yeah. I mean, the
So
Jags, they had a 6-game losing streak this year too.
yeah. All right, let's put a pin in it. We can come back to it. You know, I think just depending on kind of where we are, you know, might be one of those things where, you know, I think given the case you've laid out and your confidence in it, you know, could also just make that pick. All right, let's talk the next game. We got the Chiefs and the Raiders in Las Vegas. Chiefs are laying 9.5. The Chiefs obviously still have a lot to play for here. They can seize the number 1 seed outright with a win and a Buffalo loss. So, you know, got to figure they're gonna be coming in full force. Will be kind of interesting to see. You know, obviously we talked about the Raiders game last week. You know, Stidham throwing for what 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. You know, against the number 1 defense in the league. Obviously there was maybe a little bit of I don't want to say like momentum, maybe it's adrenaline, you know, with the benching of Carr. Curious to see if there's a bit of a come down, a bit of a drop off, you know, with that this week. But what do you think on this game?
It's kind of a stay away for me. If anything, it would be the Chiefs, though. I feel like Chiefs first half might be a better play, unless you know the Raiders decide to kind of keep this rolling. I don't really see that happening. Like you said, the Chiefs, they do have a lot to play for, both you know with the standings, but then also Mahomes, he's 430 passing yards away from the single season record. Kelsey's 117 receiving yards away from the single season record. Also, I believe 13 receptions away. So I think they're going to come out. They're a pass heavy team anyways, but I think it will be a pass heavy script, and it will be one of those where let's try and just put them away early. But then that kind of puts me in fear of the back door later on in the game if they do start sitting guys, and you know anything could happen at that point. But yeah, for me, it's maybe too many points, but I don't really like the Raiders side. If this was like a week 13 game, then I'd really like the Chiefs, but maybe not because they suck at covering the spread. But yeah, for me, it's kind of just a stay away.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think like you, I'd lean Kansas City. Fresh week of tape too, and a full week to prepare for Stidham. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's just too many variables in play here that, and given the size of the number, I'm just not compelled to take either side. So, all right, let's jump into the next game. We got Seattle at home against the Rams. This is kind of an interesting spot because Seattle's playing an early game on Sunday, or an earlier game on Sunday. And if they win, they can actually eliminate Detroit. But Green Bay holds the tiebreaker over them. So heading into, if with a Seattle win, heading into that night game on Sunday night, the Green Bay Detroit game, Green Bay could be or Detroit could be eliminated. Green Bay could still win and clinch that final postseason spot. So kind of an interesting scenario there, to have those two games playing at different times. So obviously Seattle's got a lot to play for. The Rams don't. I think there's some guys in LA that still have a little bit to play for personally, or at least from like a pride perspective. Guys like, assuming Mayfield starting, Cam Akers, who's, kind of found his stride down the stretch, assuming those guys are playing. But, kind of an interesting spot, maybe a tough spot with the Rams not having much to play for. I'd lean Seattle, but I'm not sure I'm confident either side. What do you think?
I like the Rams here. I think that they have plenty to play for. Just, I mean, there's always something to play for. I don't really buy into the whole last week of the season like they don't do it. I was big on that last year too, because it's like, what the hell did like I remember last year we were talking about some shit team, and I was like, what did they have to play for in week 2? Like same with like the Texans, right? Like, what did the Texans have to play for in week 9? That doesn't necessarily, they had nothing to play for then either.
Mm-hmm.
But they can still go out there and play teams tough and everything. Like, there's still, grown men that are playing a game that they take pride in. So I never really buy into that as much. And another thing too is like Stu Finer's big on it, but he's saying like, if anything, you should be fading the teams that need to win to get in. And I think that there was something on that Action Network, the stat sheet that they have too, where they're saying teams that need to win to get in, or they need like luck with like a loss or something, they're typically
Mm-hmm.
pretty bad against the spread historically. I think it's kind of maybe 50-50, slightly in their favor money line. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I think that there's plenty to play for. I mean, Baker definitely, he's going to be a free agent after this year.
Yep.
Definitely looking to get some tape on there. I mean, Bobby Wagner, former Seahawk, playing down in LA. It's also just a division rival. I think McVay has a pretty good record against Pete Carroll. I think they can get up here, and I think they can play spoiler and win outright. And so I really like the 6.5.
So that stat you mentioned, so I just pulled it up. Teams that need to win in the final week of the regular season to get into the playoffs or need help with a loss have gone 16 and 26, 38% against the spread when playing teams with zero incentive.
Yeah,
13 of those 42 teams lost straight up
yeah.
on the money line.
So what? So 29-13 money line.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So that applies to, the Seahawks, obviously, as we're talking about that now. And then you've also got the Dolphins and the Jets, the Steelers and the Browns, and the Packers and the Lions, possibly, assuming that the Seahawks do win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then additionally to that, if you focus solely on favorites laying more than a field goal, which is this case, the case for fading these must-win teams becomes even more glaring at 10 and 22 against the spread.
That's for more than a field goal.
More than a field goal.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a trend.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just another one where kind of similar to the Titans game, where it's like I think it's going to be a close game. So at that point, I'm taking the underdog. At that big of a number.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Cool. We'll mark the Rams as a like. Next game, we got the Eagles at home against the Giants. Eagles are laying 14. That's a big number. Which, I was reading, obviously that's got to be an indication that the assumption is the Giants are going to be sitting a lot of their starters, because they cannot improve their seating at all, correct?
Yeah.
And it seems like Jalen Hurts is scheduled to return. Eagles obviously are trying to hold on to that 1 seed. They've got to win this week.
Yeah.
They win, they control their own destiny. They win, they're the 1 seed. If they lose, San Francisco and Dallas both have the ability to leapfrog them. Dallas actually can still win the division and the number 1 seed. They need a little bit of help, but Eagles have a lot to play for. What do you think here?
I
Big
think it's going
number.
to be a blowout for the Eagles. I think that initially a lot of people were probably thinking the opposite, but then as those reports come in, and Dabo always kind of been, a little secretive about how much these guys are going to play. I feel like they're going to end up not playing at all.
Yeah.
Maybe almost like a preseason type thing, come out for the first couple drives, maybe,
Yeah.
and do that. But I do think that it's going to be one of those where you take it and then it's going to be a blowout at halftime. And if you did take the Giants, you're going to say, well, we have no fucking shot.
Yeah.
The Eagles, like you said, they have a lot to play for. Not only for seeding, but also it's like, especially if they're trying to get Jalen Hurts back for this and they do win, then they have that bye week. It's like, this is kind of like their last type of game action. I think that they probably want to go out there and really get some good reps in and really put something together. Like, hey, let's come out here, let's stomp on their throats, and then we can maybe rest in the fourth quarter or something. But I think they want to come out here, blow them out, kind of get that chemistry back, kind of get those reps in, make sure everything's feeling good going into the hopeful bye week, assuming they can, hold on to this one overall seed. So I like the Eagles to blow them out here, especially if it's going to be like Tyrod Taylor and
Yeah.
all those guys.
And like Matt Breida.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it may not even be him because he's also the backup who's got a lot of action. So who knows who we would even see out of the backfield.
Yeah.
I think to the point too that you were making of like, even if those guys do start, it could just be like a preseason thing. They might say like, oh, all the starters, they're going to play.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily tell us whether or not they're going to play a series, a quarter,
Yeah.
2 quarters, or if once the game does get out of hand, they might just pull them at that point. So yeah, I think in this case, like, this to me feels different from a Seahawks Rams situation where the Giants are a playoff team. They don't necessarily have a lot to play for, but it's not like we're talking about like an eliminated team.
Yeah.
We're talking about a team that like truly wants to rest its
Yeah,
guys.
because I think the nothing to play for narrative really just comes from the teams that like literally don't have anything to play for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the assumption that they're kind of checked out going into last week.
Yeah. And you got to assume, the Eagles are probably playing with a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, a little bit of like a they were in a very strong controlling position. Hurts gets hurt. Minshew comes in. I mean, they played really well against Dallas. They did not look good against the Saints, but they've got to be a little angry and disappointed with themselves. So, to your point earlier too, like this feels like it's got to be a bit of a get right, like need to make a statement game, like, and just kind of let everybody know, like when we're at full strength, we're not fucking around.
Yeah.
So I like the Eagles side on this too. All right. Next game, we got the Jets and the Dolphins. Dolphins at home, laying 1. They're in a must-win position. The Jets are not. So this is one of those spots that we talked about earlier. Dolphins obviously are another team. I mean, this has been an epic collapse. They've lost 5 straight. They were 8-3 at one point.
Well, I don't think they've alternated results at all. I think they were like 3-0, and then they lost 3 without Tua, and then they won 5 with Tua, and they lost 3 again. And it's just been a run every time.
Yeah. So it's and I mean some interesting rumblings too coming out of Miami. Like there are talks that like, I mean, if they lose and they fail to make the playoffs, like McDaniels could be out, which would be absolutely bananas to me. If
that would just be ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if they
I don't really buy that, because I mean, it's like, I mean, if they're kind of too dull to just like see, well, like, Tua almost died numerous times this season. We had to go actual stretches without him. And I don't really buy that rumor. I feel like that's just going to be one
Well,
person that really wanted to leak something and that type of thing.
well, they're also attaching it to like the whole Sean Payton thing coming
Yeah.
back. That whole narrative, like Payton and Brady. It was like obviously that there were plans for that to happen last year, and then the whole Brian Flores thing.
Yeah.
Belichick texting the wrong Brian. That whole thing happened. They had to cool the jets
Yeah,
on
but
that.
I also just think that that's something where it's like, since they got caught, like that kind of has to die. Like kind of like the
You
Ime
would,
Udoka thing, right? Like Ime Udoka, he was all of a sudden going to become the Nets coach, and then you just kind of it becomes so public, and everyone's like, "What the hell are they doing?" Like,
yeah,
how is your reaction to somebody doing this? In their workplace to now suddenly like, oh, I got to go hire that guy because he's a good coach or something.
yeah, yeah,
I just feel like that's something that kind of I feel like that's never going to come to fruition. They can't
yeah,
do
yeah. You would think, but you never know with people. Anyway, so back to the game. Dolphins catching one at home, so they're not even favored. Who do you like in this?
Well, the Dolphins are now 3-point favorites for what it's worth.
Oh, that's interesting.
Um,
Wow. What do you think caused that line move?
well, so I think Mike White might be not necessarily probable.
Oh,
Let me
so is
see.
Joe Flacco's the quarterback?
I believe it is Joe Flacco, right? It's Joe Flacco against Skylar Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it might just be that. Um, I'm not exactly sure what else it could be. Um, this one's kind of tough. I mean, I feel like the Dolphins can pull this out. But I also just like everything kind of screams like take the Jets here. Um,
Mm.
but I feel like this one's too much of a coin flip really for me to decide. I think that this is I think it's a pretty appropriate spread. So I mean, I don't know. It's too tough for me to make a call, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, I don't really have confidence with either side, so this game's just a pass for me.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Uh, all right. I flipped some games around just because obviously the Packers and Lions game got moved to Sunday night, so I moved that to the end. We can talk about it there. So I moved in here. We've got the Vikings and the Bears. Vikings are 7.5 point favorites in Chicago. Nathan Peterman starting it at QB for Chicago, which that's awful. Best Minnesota can do is the 2 seed. They need a win and a San Francisco loss. So kind of interesting. I mean, I guess is that something that's going to be important enough for them? I was kind of poking around just trying to see if there was any sort of like definitive word on, if their starters are going to play and if they are going to play, like how long. So kind of tough to read, but I mean, if the starters play the whole game and you got Nathan Peterman at quarterback, I mean, I do like the Vikings -7.5. I just don't know if their starters are going to play the whole game. What do you think here?
I believe the spread's down to 5.5 now, so that could be an indication that they're not.
Yeah.
Um,
So if the spread's at 5.5 and we're getting it at 7.5, that's not great.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me just feels like I think just stay away because it's just like
Yeah.
the spread does feel like kind of weirdly small. It feels like they're kind of begging you to just hammer the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Because of like that initial like like ugh, like when you hear like the Peterman starting, so it's like that kind of makes me like the Bears line just like a
A
little
little
bit.
leery of it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just kind of interests me, but otherwise, like I mean, I don't think I really like either side.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We can pass on that one. All right, next game we've got Steelers and Browns. Steelers at home laying 2.5. This is another one of those games that falls into that category we were talking about earlier. Steelers obviously they still have a shot. So what do they need? They need to win,
Oh
and
my
they
god,
need
there's like
both.
a fucking bug on my wall.
Oh,
That's
how
like
big?
disgusting. It's like a stink bug, I think.
Uh,
Ugh.
are you able to focus?
I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna ignore it, let it go away.
I mean, do you need to go off camera and deal with
Nah, that's
this?
also Gross.
Can you turn the camera so we can get a look at
No, I don't. Let's just move on.
it?
What were you
Okay.
saying though about the?
So so this is one of those games that fits into that trend we were talking about earlier. In terms of a team that needs to win in the final week of the regular season, playing against a team that has zero incentive. So the Steelers need what? They need to win, and then they will need both the Patriots
And the
and the
Dolphins
Dolphins to lose.
Yeah, because they have
And then
head-to-head tiebreak losses against both.
yeah. Although this is a game where I actually think I like the Brown side. Both because of that trend, and also because I'm not entirely sure that the Browns are like a zero incentive. I mean, zero incentive in terms of they're not making the playoffs, but I got to assume that they're going to have Deshaun Watson out there with the starters because like this is really about just continuing to get reps, build rapport, game action against a competitive team to really build some momentum and get ready for next year, right? I mean, he's played what 5 games this year. So this is going to be a bit of a like this is another opportunity. We want to make sure that we just we're continuing to build that rapport as we head into the offseason.
Yeah, and I think also the motivation is just being able to play
Mm-hmm.
spoiler for a division rival where
that too.
yeah, so like there's plenty to play for. So I like the Browns a lot too. I think that it's kind of being a little bit of a contrarian there, and like you said, going against that trend. Also, it's just the fact, I think people are starting to kind of feel the Steelers a little bit. They've had the 2 straight wins with the game-winning drives from Kenny Pickett, so it's like that kind of just screams to fade in this week. Just because I think people are going to look at that and say like, well, they have so much to play for. If they win, like that gives them a chance to get in, and then that's exactly why I kind of want to bet against them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Seems like we're both in agreement on the Browns plus 2.5 there. All right. Next game. Colts at home laying 2.5 against the Texans. My eyes, both of these teams are dead.
I say pass on it.
I don't know if one team is more dead than the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is gross. All right, let's move on. All right, 49ers and Cardinals. 49ers laying 14 at home. They can still secure the number 1 seed. They're going to win. And they need a Philly loss. And I believe they do hold the tiebreaker over the Cowboys. I think it's due to, I want to say, conference record. Are the Cardinals dead? Are they dead enough? JJ Watt's final game, I'm not sure that matters. I could see him like maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he'll play, but I'm not sure how much he'd even play. But I don't know. I mean, it's a big number.
I think for him, he seems like the type he'll play every snap.
You think so?
The final game, yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's a big number. I mean, what do you think? Is that coverable for the Niners, or do you think that's too big?
After last week, I'm not too interested in
the Niners with a big spread.
Yeah, and taking the Niners with a big spread.
Yeah.
Last week was just too weird, and this just isn't an attractive enough game for me, really.
Are they playing at the same time as the Eagles? Because that's another thing too. I'm curious. Not all the games are at the same time, I think.
425. Yeah, they're both at 425.
Oh, they're both at 425. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's good for the integrity of the game. But not a situation in which we need to worry about could the Eagles clinch before the start of that game? Yeah. Do you feel strongly enough about the Cardinals to take that side with the points?
Nah, it's just a game I'm not really interested in.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not either, so I think we're good to pass. All right, next game, we got the Broncos at home laying 2.5 against the Chargers. This is actually one Chargers can still improve their seating. But it's all dependent, from what I understand, on the Bengals Ravens game. And the Chargers could clinch their position in the playoffs before kickoff. So I think the reason that they're an underdog in this is I think that general assumption is they're not going to play their starters.
Yeah.
Which obviously makes it a bit of a risky pick. I think, I assume are the Broncos playing their starters?
I think so.
They probably should, right?
Yeah.
They haven't exactly lit it up this year. But I feel like that. If they're playing their starters, like they're probably going to play pretty. Russell Wilson needs to build like any momentum that he can.
Yeah, there was a headline last week too that he was going to be kind of just reconsidering everything, in terms of his routine. Like I think he had like a real like man in the mirror moment where he was like everything's kind of coming to him now. He's realizing like, wow, people really do think I'm an asshole. And so it seems like in the offseason he's going to kind of look into that and see what he can change and anything they can do to be better. And I think that kind of ties into all the wide receivers tweeting out everything and giving their support. So I kind of feel like in like the same vein of the Browns and Deshaun Watson just kind of saying like let's try and build some momentum towards next year. You definitely could get some of that this week. And they played they came out after everything and they played the Chiefs very tight. So
they played them tight twice this year. They they showed they can compete. Obviously just dreadful. Across the entire season, but certainly had a couple moments. I could get behind the Broncos side. Especially again if heading into kickoff, the Chargers have realized at this point that there is no incentive. They might just end up.
Yeah, then all of a sudden we could be getting like serious value if they're
absolutely
everybody.
Yeah. Okay. All right, next game, you got the Falcons at home laying 4 against the Bucks. The Bucks are the 4 seed, won the division last week with their win over Carolina. They will not improve their seeding. Bowles has said that he intends to play as starters, although, this to me reeks of one of those cases we talked about earlier where it's like, he says he's going to play the starters, but we have no idea how long that means. It could be something too. It's like second drive, Tom Brady could take a sack and Bowles could panic, and just pull everybody out. I did read they're already going in without 5 starters. Donovan Smith, the offensive lineman, he's actually really bad, so maybe that's better anyway. Let's see, D lineman, what is it, Vita Vea? Carlton Davis, Logan Ryan from the secondary, and then Carl Nassib. He's been dealing with a pec issue, it sounds like. So those are 5 guys, one offensive player, 4 defensive guys that they're definitely going to be without. They've been awful against the spread all season. I'm not sure that changes here. I do feel like at this Atlanta team, like you got a bunch of young guys that are like maybe trying to build something, especially in offense, with Ritter and what's that? Tyler, how do you pronounce his last name?
Algier.
Algier. I didn't even want to try it with some of the pronunciations I've had this year. And then Drake London. I feel like those are some guys they're trying to build that future together. So I like the Falcons side here if we were going to take one. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's kind of weird to me. So I was just looking at some of the incentives. So Chris Godwin needs 9 receptions to break the Bucs record. Tom Brady's typically pretty good at getting his guys to any of their incentives, and I'm sure especially if you're chasing a record or something,
that's a lot though. 9's a lot.
Yeah, that's very doable for Godwin though. He's like a 7 reception guy anyways.
It's doable, but that's a full game commitment. He's gonna have to be there. They'll both have to be in there the full game. So it's just a matter of like, is Todd Bowles willing to do that?
Yeah, and that's kind of, it was definitely like a like Arians would, and then with Arians, Bowles isn't Arians guy. Arians is obviously still around the organization a ton, anyways. So I think that there definitely will be some motivation to go for that. It could also just be something where like he like they could just go in there and in the first half say like let's just get Chris all these receptions and everything, but I don't know. It really just comes down to how much they do play, and obviously the spread kind of suggests. I'm looking right now. His last off the bye week, Godwin has gone for 12, 8, 5, 8, 8, 9.
Hmm.
So
I
he was
mean,
always right around there.
it is doable, but
Yeah.
you know, like I said, it's just I don't think he's going to get it in the first quarter.
Yeah.
It's so yeah, they'd have to commit to the. Were there any other incentives, or was that the only one?
No, Brady needs 12 pass attempts to pass Stafford for the single season record, but no,
Okay. Holy shit, 45 years old, and
yeah,
he could set the record
yeah.
for pass attempt. That's wild. Holy shit, he's like third in the league in passing yards, isn't he?
Probably. I mean, they're like the worst rushing team in the NFL. So
Yeah. I know people have liked kind of dogging on like how bad that offense has looked, but statistically, he's actually I know the TDs are down, but statistically, he's had a hell of a year.
yeah, but that's kind of like the argument people try and use to. Hey, it's the same thing that people say like about like LeBron, where it's like, how can you say LeBron's washed when he's still putting up 27, 7, and 7? It's like, well, his efficiency's way down, and
Yeah.
like he's not
Yeah.
doing the same things that he was doing 10 years ago. And it's kind of the same thing. Like you kind of have to watch the Bucks games to really
Oh yeah. Yeah.
understand that,
Yeah.
like, this team's like not really the same. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a big thing. It's like, yeah, Brady's still putting up the numbers, but it's like if you watch a Bucks game, and especially if you bet on one and you're like really like, why are they not getting these touchdowns? It's like you definitely can see it and feel it that, Brady still isn't, he's not what he was even, 2 years ago. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I
Um,
think it's more out of necessity with the numbers and everything.
well, I mean, even just like the average what is it, average yards per attempt or per completion is like way down.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's been something again to your point. Like you watch the games. I mean, it reminds me a lot of like his last year in New England, where it was like O line was so bad. He had to get the ball out in less than 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So every pass was either a dump off or it was, it's like a 2-step drop, slant route.
Yeah.
And it's like these little 3-4 yard
Yeah, like I'm looking
completions.
at his stats right now. He's got 3 less attempts from last year.
Yeah.
In one less game. But I mean, just go just a game.
700 less yards.
Yeah, 700 less yards, 19 less touchdowns,
Yeah.
only three less interceptions.
Yeah. His QBR is down 21.2 points.
Yeah.
His quarterback rating is down 12 points. Yeah, I mean, this year's like it's actually like very on par with his last year in New England.
Yeah.
Which obviously was not a great year. Yeah. All right. So back to the game. Like, is it a pass game? Do you think?
Yeah, because this just feels like a game that it's like just gonna be very not interesting at all. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just can't imagine there's gonna be much to fall on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll pass, head to the next game, which is Dallas and Washington. So the Commanders are home. They're getting 7.5. Cowboys have seeding implications. They can still win the division. They can still get the 1 seed. So they're definitely coming out. They got everything to play for. Washington eliminated last week. Their coach didn't even know that they could be, which was not a good look. It sounds like Heineke's going to start, but they're talking about playing Sam Howell. So not really sure what's going on there.
I thought Howell was named the starter.
Was he officially named the starter?
I'm checking right now.
I was talking with somebody about it the other day, and it was Heineke was still the guy, but I think Heineke was actually pushing for Howell to play.
As of 2 days
All
ago,
right.
Sleeper saying Howell to start.
Yeah, I'm reading the Washington Post 16 hours ago. Sam Howell is starting for the Commanders versus the Cowboys. Okay. All right. I like Dallas in a rout here.
No Antonio Gibson, no Brian Robinson either.
I like Dallas in a rout. What do you think?
I kind of like the Washington side. I just feel like the Dallas pick just feels like too obvious to me. I kind of like the Washington side. The source, that's also one of his locks of the week.
Is it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't love it though, but it was just more like that 7.5 is kind of ugly to me. For Dallas.
Yeah. We were talking about the source a few weeks ago. We could just ride the source,
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I don't love it, but it was just one of those where I'm like,
yeah,
I heard him pick it as his lock, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay, now it
that's
makes it
interesting.
worth thinking about.
I mean, especially for him to say it's a lock, that's saying something for sure.
Yeah,
You okay. All
a lot of
right, next
sharp
game.
action too. It looks like that might be the sharp side too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, all right. I can be swayed there. Given all that. All right, next game, you got the Saints at home, lane 3.5 against the Panthers. I mean, neither team has anything to play for. Saints coming off the win against Philly last week. Panthers obviously got eliminated last week, so their season's done. I probably lean Panthers here, but I don't love either side. It's just two eliminated teams playing each other. I'm not sure that I can feel I can feel compelled to back a side.
I like the Panthers a lot. I actually think they got plenty to play for. I mean, Steve Wilkes is trying to convince the Panthers to let him keep the job. Sam
Yep.
Darnold's definitely trying to get some tape out there. Maybe, just based on how the season ended, he might have been able to get himself an opportunity to at least compete with a rookie next year or
Yep.
somebody if they want to bring somebody in. But they're
Mhm.
also in a spot where it's like they might not be able to make that rookie pick. And then if they can't make a splash in free agency, then Darnold might actually be the guy that they end up
They
sticking
have to
with.
be. Yeah.
We've the Panthers. They've been good in these underdog spots for us. I've been liking them, ever since Wilkes took over. But I think that's a big thing. I think that even though they got eliminated last week, it's one of those where it's like, well, hey, let's kind of go out with a bang on this season. So I like the Panthers as dogs.
Well, I mean, I think the players like Wilkes too. So, I mean, if the players know that he's maybe coaching for the job, they also might be compelled to like go out there and really give it everything they got.
Exactly.
So it's not just him coaching for it. It's those guys, they want to put a good effort out there to see if they can help him secure it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I like the Panthers. You love them, so I think that can be a pick.
Yeah.
All right, I'll mark that as a like. So the next game is the Bills and the Pats. I did see from Tom in his write up, it looks like the Circa actually is not offering a line on this game, so that game's unavailable for the Circa. So we can talk about the game. We can make a pick for the Westgate. But it's
I'm all
not
set
going to be
on
an
it for what
available
it's
pick,
worth.
or we could just pass.
Yeah.
Out of respect for DeMar Hamlin.
Well, their
All
like
right.
radio play-by-play guy or whatever, he had a stroke too. So
Wait, what?
yeah, they got a lot to play for.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, it's like they're like whoever like their Joe Castiglione is. He just had like a stroke.
Oh God, yeah, John Murphy. Jesus. Wow.
But it's also I think that's just like it's kind of like a 50-50 thing where it's like they could just come out and they could still be so shaken up that we squeak out a
Yeah.
win. Like it's either going to be like a Pats 14 to 9 point win or it's going to be like a Bills blowout. And
Yeah.
to me, it kind of feels like it'll probably be a Bills blowout, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of like a weird game to pick just based off of
Yeah. No, I
it's
agree. I'm comfortable passing it
yeah.
too. All right. Next game we've got is the Bengals and the Ravens. Bengals obviously were on they were on the other side of that game the other night. They're at home. They're laying 7.5 against the Ravens. Bengals still have a shot at that 1 seed. They've got the division. I think also they with what is it, a win and a Ravens loss, or do they just need a win? And then they can it won't be, what is it, a coin flip? for home field advantage if they play each other? Is that the deal?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even bother reading. I saw
Yeah.
too much literature, and it was just
Too many words. Too many
yeah.
words. Um, but
Like I said,
yeah, I
my
mean,
understanding will not affect the outcome either way. So whatever
yeah,
happens
yeah,
will sort itself out via the rules, and
yeah,
there's no need for me to understand.
yeah. um, I mean, I feel like the Bengals a little bit are in a little bit of a similar camp, maybe even more so than the Bills. Of like, I mean, they even though it wasn't their teammate,
Yeah, they still
they
experienced it.
they experienced it, and how are they going to bounce back from this a week later? I think is kind of the biggest question that I have. I don't know. 7.5. Like the Ravens can still. I think they're still playing for seeding. Um,
Well, they
so
might be
I
playing. Did the Bengals lock up the division?
they did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think for the Ravens, this is about are you the 5 or the 6 seed?
Oh, that's right, because the Bengals they can't even have as many losses.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. But I think if the Ravens win, let me see. I'm just double checking this. So if the Ravens win and the Chargers lose, the Ravens can jump the Chargers. They can be the 5 seed.
yeah,
If the Ravens lose, Chargers lock up the 5 seed, which we were talking about earlier. So if Cincy beats Baltimore, then the Chargers definitely will have nothing to play for because they'll have locked up the 5 seed without even needing to play. So I mean, Baltimore definitely like if that 5 seed's important to them, which um if the top seeds are upset in the postseason, like you just want to be as high a seed as you can be.
yeah.
Um, you know, uh, so it should be something to play for. So I assume they're going to have their starters in. They're going to keep them in, unless Cincy just comes out and blitzes them, early on. Then they might take their foot off the gas. But 7.5 feels like a big number, especially for a team coming off what they experienced last week. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough read. I feel like the Bengals they definitely have kind of flipped the switch to just being full on mad about potentially getting screwed by these new
Yeah.
rule adjustments or whatever. So there could be some added motivation there, but at the same time, it does just feel like maybe the Ravens are just being like crazy overlooked in this spot.
Mm.
So that 7.5 does make it interesting, but to me, I don't know, kind of tough read for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't love either side. Again, I'd lean Baltimore. But I don't love the pick. So
Yeah,
all right, last game, Sunday night game. Could be awesome. Packers and Lions, Green Bay at home, laying 5.5. And I mean, they're in control of their own destiny, right? Like, no matter what Seattle does, Packers win this game, they're in.
yeah,
This is completing the run that I think everybody feared was coming. It has happened, and this is the final step in Aaron Rodgers taking this team on that run. Um, they look good. Uh, I'm not really concerned about like the Lions' motivation if Seattle wins early in the day and knocks them out of the postseason. I feel like there's a lot of pride, um, pardon the pun, on the line for the Lions. So I think it's really just a matter of like how you read the game and how you read the matchup. I don't really take the motivation piece into too much consideration there, but um, what do you think here? I mean, obviously these two teams played earlier this year. Lions, we backed the Packers in that matchup. This was like a Rodgers owns Detroit, kind of read through 3 picks. I think inside the 5. Lost 15-9. Lions obviously have been on a run, but so have the Packers. What do you like here? Do you like a side?
I don't love the number. I think Green Bay has to win this. Um, I just at this point it's just so hard to picture Aaron Rodgers not winning in this spot. But
Hmm.
that number does make it a little tricky. I don't necessarily love it, but I do think gun to my head I'd probably take the Packers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this just feels like, again, it just feels like it's his destiny to complete this run.
Yeah,
Um, you know, especially at home Sunday
yeah,
night. Like this is, I fully expect to see him doing the post game interview,
yeah.
you know, talking about what it means and all that good stuff. So yeah, it is that, it's that weird 5.5 number. But we do have one, two, three, four. We have six, seven, I guess, if we count the Titans. We have 7 games if we count the Titans,
Yeah,
without the Packers. So we also don't need it
yeah.
if the confidence level is lower. All right. Well, let me just run through what we have. So to recap, we've got Titans +6. And that's in a winner take all game against the Jags in Jacksonville. We got the Rams +6.5 against Seattle. Seattle in a must win spot. Rams fit that trend. Trend definitely says to back them. Eagles at home laying 14 against a Giants team that is likely not playing their starters. Eagles in a bit of a must, well, not a bit of, they're in a must win to keep that 1 seed. Browns +2.5 in Pitt. Pitt's got to win. They need help. Browns are really just kind of playing for momentum for next season. Broncos, similar spot against the Chargers. They're at home laying 2.5. Chargers may have the 5 seed locked up before kickoff. So the line is really reflective of assuming they're not going to play. Commanders +7.5 at home against the Cowboys. And then the Panthers +3.5 on the road against the Saints. Any games in there you definitely love, you want to lock in?
I like the Browns a lot. I like
Yep.
the Panthers. Um,
Um, I like that. I like those Rams and Eagles picks.
uh,
I mean,
yeah,
pretty confident Jalen Hurts is playing, right?
it seems pretty good. Yeah, yeah. I like the Eagles pick.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I like the Rams too. It's like a little bit of a public favorite, but at the I don't know. I like the spot a lot.
Yeah. Public does get it right sometimes.
Yeah.
Is there any sharp action on the side?
Um, um, yeah, it's pretty heavy on the Rams, but doesn't. I don't know if there's how many tickets there are
Mm-hmm.
on it right now.
Um, Commanders was the source's like lock of the week, right?
Yeah, I kind of like riding
Um,
with that.
all right, so auto locks, it seems Eagles, Browns, Panthers, and we can go Commanders.
Yeah,
Um, and then becomes a question of you've got Broncos, that Rams game, and the Titans. And then we did like the Packers to win. It was just the 5.5 number.
yeah.
Um, but is of those, I guess of those 3 games, Packers, Broncos, or 4 games, Packers, Broncos, Rams, Titans. Um, is there one in there that you feel more compelled over the others?
Definitely Rams or Titans. I mean, I like the Titans a lot. Um, maybe more so than the Rams, just because the Rams do have like that heavy public side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but well, even besides that, I like the Titans more. But
Mm-hmm.
we were more 50-50 on that, where with the Rams we're more in agreement. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, if you've been swayed enough on the Titans, then I'd love to have them. If not, then we can go with the Rams.
I mean, it's week 18 and we're out of it, so we can just
Yeah,
go.
It's also true.
Yeah, let's go with the Titans. So cool. All right.
So wait, what was it one more
Titans,
time? It was the Titans, Panthers, Browns,
Eagles,
Eagles, Commanders.
Commanders. Yep.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
That's it. And that's it for the picks.
Yeah, it's our last one for the season.
We should we do like a should we do like just a final like recap?
No, we should let it die.
Funeral. Just let it die.
You should just let it die.
A memorial service for our 2022
So
and
let it go.
2023. The moops are dead.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get these picks in. Can you get my parlay in?
Yeah, I could try. It might be tough getting the Titans in though, just because they play tomorrow. Gianna's working, so.
Oh, okay. Wait, where are you? Oh, you're still home. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Forgot about that. Okay. All right, let me know. If not, maybe we can just do a four way.
Yeah.
Get it in when you can. Okay. All righty. I'll talk to you later.
Yep, I'll talk to you.
All right, I'll see you.
Bye.